Hey everybody, I'm Kayfren Kaur and I'm an engagement manager here at ECA Partners. And we are an executive search firm that focuses on C-level positions and all of the roles that report up to them for businesses across industries, though we do focus quite a bit on private equity. And one of the things that makes ECA stand out is that we've got fantastic success hiring PhDs and providing them with the support and mentorship they need to succeed in executive search. And so many of them started out as interns and are now in leadership positions with us. So today, we're having a conversation with Liv Hanninen, who is one of my colleagues at ECA and one of my favorite people. And she has made that transition from an academic career to executive search really masterfully. So for many of you watching who might be thinking about making the same transition, you probably have a lot of questions about what it's like to jump from scholarship into the business world. So we thought it might be useful here to talk to somebody who's not only made this transition, but also thrived at ECA and moved now into a senior leadership position. So Liv is a senior director at ECA, and she also leads our human capital practice by way of a brief introduction here. So thanks for being here today, Liv. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Kay. I'll try and live up to the hot billing you've given me.
I'm sure. I have no doubts. And I'd love to just kind of start off by hearing a tiny bit about your career in academia before you came to ECA. And tell me a little bit about how you got involved. Like, how did we snag you for the internship to start off?
Sure. I was actually the first intern as well. I was the guinea pig. So I guess it was a good experiment. I was a lucky guinea pig. But yeah, I definitely thought I was going to be a history professor from the age of like 20, I guess. Yeah. I went straight through academia, didn't pause. The only interesting thing that happened to me is I was happily doing my PhD in London when my advisor said, hey, I just got hired by University of California, Irvine, pack your bags, we're moving to Southern California, which stretched out my timeline a little bit because the UK PhD is a lot shorter than the American one. But I was like all for it. And I definitely wasn't someone who had like a messy breakup with academia. I had a really great experience there. I had a fantastic advisor. But what I just discovered like a few things about myself in the process, things that you don't know about yourself when you're 20 years old, or at least I did not have that level of self-awareness.
Yeah. Same.
Few things. First of all, I'm kind of like a natural extrovert and a people person, and I think academia can be really lonely. I think history was a really bad choice for someone who thrives around being other people, because I did pre-revolutionary Russian history, basically. So I was looking at pre-1917. I looked at the Russo-Japanese War and the First World War, and I basically asked, what did it mean to die for your country? My subject was military death, which was also really dark and depressing. But my dissertation was like, what did it mean to die for your country when what that country means and what you're dying for has been like completely thrown up in the air, not just politically, but like technological advancement, cultural shifts, etc., etc. So I had this sort of, I guess, kind of spark go off in my head in a bad way when I did my year of research in Russia, in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and everyone had sort of said, oh, this would be the best year of your life. And it was really intellectually stimulating. That was never the problem. And I made some really good friends like outside of the archive. But like the 9 to 5 in the archive of like sitting there by myself, no matter how like cool the stuff I was founding, I was like so lonely. And that's when I really felt it. My husband was also a physicist in the PhD, my now husband, in the PhD program, and I also sort of got to see him working in a lab around other people, and it kind of made me feel and realize even within academia how isolated the humanities could be. So that was like one of my first things where I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is like the path to happiness for me. And then the other thing that kind of started to frustrate me a little bit, and I didn't know that the grass was necessarily greener on the other side, I just sort of presumed it had to be, was just like the pace of academia. Yeah. Like I did find it a little bit frustrating that I would be like the chair of the history, whatever, I can't remember what the name was, like the grad student history society, asked to like suggest some changes to the graduate syllabus, went away, did all of this research, And I think I watched the faculty, with the best of intentions, sort of debate the matter for about 6 months and then choose to do nothing. And I found that to be really demoralising. I also got a really great article published in an amazing journal, which I'm really proud of. But it was published a year and a half after I submitted it. And I was just like, I don't even remember it. Like, I don't remember what I did last week, let alone a year and a half from now. So that pace of action kind of like... those are the few things that were like pushing me out of the door. But I honestly can't speak like highly enough of like my advisor and my colleagues and the whole experience. I did love it. And I think when I realised I didn't want to do academia, that's the question, right? You can realise you don't want to do academia, but then it's like, what else do you do, especially if it's all you've known in your adult life? So I basically got myself, I don't know who gave me the idea. I'm sure it didn't come to me organically because I'm not that smart. But I got myself on LinkedIn and I reached out to people with history degrees who looked like they had interesting jobs, and I asked them to speak with me for 30 minutes. And that was really inspiring because I realized actually how quickly people outside of academia reply and how willing they are to give up their time to hop on the phone with people like me to answer sort of stupid questions. From that point, I was like, okay, well, I guess like consulting sounds kind of cool, but it looked like kind of very long hours and a lot of travel.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't quite sure about that. And I was sort of figuring it all out, like writing my dissertation, finishing it up at the time, and ECA reached out to me, and I honestly had no idea what executive search like meant as a career. Like I sort of knew vaguely what headhunters did out from like TV shows. And I honestly took the interview for interview practice. But I was just blown away by everybody I met. They were really smart and really nice, and like they just came across as like dream colleagues. So I just kept saying like yes to the next round because why wouldn't you? And here I am 4 years later.
Yeah, and that's what sold me too. I mean, the work itself is intellectually stimulating. It's interesting. You get to look under the hood of a lot of different kinds of companies and industries and become something of a subject matter expert really quickly. And I think that's one of the coolest things about what we do. I was really worried that I was going to be bored, whatever I did next. And similar to you, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I have some experiences of working with people and I love that, but I was just like, I have no idea how to turn this into a different kind of career. But you all sold me, and it's
definitely not boring.
Yeah, but it's also a great group of colleagues. I mean, I think that's like, even when things get tough, you have amazing people to talk to and have very nerdy conversations about things outside of what we do at work, which is fun.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, you went through the internship, you were the guinea pig for a lot of things. I'm sure in some ways the internship that we have today looks a bit different than when you went through it. But could you tell me a couple of the things you felt really kind of prepared you during that experience for some of the career steps you've taken since then?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that stood out to me most during my internship is like you're kind of formally assigned a mentor. Me and Kay actually had the same mentor, this wonderful colleague, Karen, who was fantastic.
Oh, the same lineage.
Yeah, and like I still reach out to Karen when I've got questions, and she's just lovely and supportive. But what was wonderful is like everyone else gives you the impression that they're like there as well. Like I never felt like I could just reach out to Karen with a question. I've sort of been like raised by a village at ECA is how I think of it. Like I've had a couple of formal mentors now in my time here, but there's like 7 or 8 people who I know that I can reach out to for advice. There's really very few people I don't feel like I could do that. So not only do you get like one person's opinion on what's going on and what should happen, you can get like as many opinions as you want and decide which path feels right for you.
Yeah.
So I think that really stood out. I think we do a really good job about like pace of expectations. Like ECA was always really transparent with me. They're like, hey, we've hired like a really smart person who doesn't know anything about executive search. Like we know exactly what we've bought when we brought you in, essentially. Like here's what you said on the tin and we're going to treat you like that. So you get to like shadow for like a couple of weeks and just kind of absorb as much as possible, and then like you gradually take on like one search and then a second search, and so I felt like there was like quite like a nice supportive like slow ramp, and then suddenly you're sort of running 6 or 7 searches at once and you're like, oh okay, I guess I'm here. But at no point was there like this like you weren't really ever shoved into the deep end, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And that being said, you do get that hands-on experience early on, which is something I appreciated, especially after being very frustrated with the glacial pace of academia. And it's just like, one day you'll teach your own class. One day you'll get to do this.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, as soon as you're ready, we'll put you in to the driver's seat. And you get a lot of support along the way, and you're never fully kind of like alone in an island, but it's also real. You're not getting coffee. It's actually doing the work.
100%. And I think you're given like a really good view early on into like the career trajectory at ECA. I think one of the things that for me pushed me away from academia a bit is like, okay, so I'm going to publish my dissertation and then I'll find another project and I'll do it. And then I'll find another project and I'll publish a book. And it's like, okay, I'm going to get like smarter as I go. I know that. But I don't know if things are like materially different for the next 40 years of my life.
Yeah.
Whereas we kind of have some like pretty cool stages at ECA where you sort of start off in the manager role, really like executing on the search, but there's this path where it's like you're going to move through the ranks and then move into more of like the director level roles where it becomes a lot more about like selling the work, as much as kind of overseeing the execution side. And I was like, that was exciting. I was like, okay, there's something to kind of really work for here. And when I get there, things are going to change again. And that was really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that. And kind of like along that note, one of the things that does change as you move into director level roles is you get to focus on a practice area, and you still get to do a lot of different things. There's plenty of variety, but you get to go deeper on something that really interests you. And I know that you've picked HR as your main practice area, so I'd love to hear from you about what made you decide that that would be something that you'd like to kind of be the ECA expert in.
Yeah. And I guess for context, ECA, we've always done human capital searches, so like that's like chief people officers, CHROs, but it's not something we've ever like marketed as something that, you know, we don't say, we make a big deal of our finance practice and our strategy practice, but HR like wasn't really up there. And for the most part, when we did HR searches, it was repeat clients. Someone who loved like the VP of finance that we placed, and they'd come back to us and say, "Hey, do you guys do chief people officer as well?" Like, yeah, we do. So we could do them, but we weren't like waving a flag that said, "Hey, we're really good at these."
Yeah.
And the way ECA works is you kind of start off as a generalist in like your first year or so. You want to get exposure to as many industries as possible, as many different types of roles as possible. And then the idea is sort of in your second year, you sort of start you sort of like start focusing a little bit. And you're having these conversations the whole time with our COO and CEO about where you sort of see your future. And HR wasn't even on my radar in that second year. I really liked strategy roles and I liked healthcare. So I was kind of like, oh, I wonder which one I'll pick. And then I just had like a couple of HR searches come my way, and I was like, hang on, maybe I want to do my own thing. Like, I loved them. I like really believe in like it sounds wishy-washy, but like for me, the most interesting question about the business world is why people choose to work at places when they have other options. And as much as I believe a company needs a great CFO, can't get by without that. I think the value of a great CHRO who understands how to make a business a place people actively want to work at is really, like, I think they're worth their weight in gold. And I think HR has quite a bad reputation in some areas, so it's such an interesting kind of problem for these folks to like tackle and succeed in. I've often thought actually like there's like a weird parallel to my PhD research because it was like very cultural history essentially. We're talking about like completely different levels of scale here, but my PhD was all like, why do people die for their country? And I'm like, it's not a million miles removed from why do people decide to choose to stay in one place. You know, it's all about it's really taking a lot of qualitative data as much as the quantitative stuff and actually coming up with actionable insights and like a plan of action from it. You're not just working off numbers as much as you like to say you are. Like these CHROs aren't. It is reading a room. And I find that to be super interesting. And something that's really cool about ECA is I phoned our CEO and I was like, hey Ken, we're talking about practice areas. How do you feel about me starting my own? And he was like, go for it, love it. And it's been a great, I'm coming up on like a year of that, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. No, it's been cool to see you build the practice, and we're on an HR search together, in fact, right now, and it's been a blast. So, last quick thing I wanted to cover before we go is just kind of thinking about, somebody watching this video who is contemplating the internship, thinking about reaching out to us. What's kind of the most important advice you might give to somebody who's thinking about leaving academia and considering something like executive search?
Yeah. I think you want to have a good hard conversation with yourself about whether or not you're enough of an extrovert to enjoy this role, because
that's a good point.
I do think unless you have that kind of baked in, it's it'll be a little bit tough. You really need to be someone who gets energy of talking to other people, because that is most of the job. I love it. I know that you love it, but I absolutely know that's not for everybody. Especially people who kind of have chosen to go into academia in the first place. So I think have an honest conversation with yourself there. There's no shame in not going down that path. But if you think that there's a chance that could be you, I would say treat the internship like it's intended to be, which is like a try before you buy for both sides. And we've had people go through the internship, super smart, lovely people who at the end say hey, I've learned so much. I think I want to go back to academia. And I think that's totally fine. That's built into the program. Yeah, exactly. That way you know. Of it. Yeah. Exactly. You're going to learn so much in the process about yourself, for better or for worse. I don't think you have much to lose, frankly.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the chat, Liv. This has been really helpful, and I will release you to the rest of your afternoon, but appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Kate. Bye.